Hi everybody, I'm with Paul Tanton from Nuvita Coaching. He is a leadership coach. He's a member of BNI, the president of the Royal Chapter. He is quite a renowned person in his community, and it's really a privilege for us to chat to him about what he does today. Paul, tell me about you.
How far back do you want to go?
Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Johannesburg. We moved around quite a lot. My dad was a teacher, so we were always involved in schools. But had my origins in Johannesburg. I've lived in Bloemfontein. I've lived in Grahamstown, and then ended up in Cape Town as well. And then finally ended up in Pretoria. So I've been here for the last 21 years.
And you never settled in Cape Town. I mean, it's just so nice.
I love Cape Town because of the cycling. I used to cycle those routes. That was beautiful. I never really connected with the people there. It was a promotion there, so it was good for us, but it was the time that our children were growing up.
Yes.
And my daughter was a couple of weeks old when we moved down there. And I think our focus was just so much on the children. Anyone who's had children will know that those first 2-3 years, you don't have anything else, it's just children.
And I see you studied as a teacher first.
Well, I studied a higher education diploma. It wasn't a teaching. I've done teaching, and I still lecture today. I love lecturing. I love imparting knowledge to people. So my background is a higher education diploma, but my core focus has always been around, a couple of areas: commerce and electrical engineering, or telecommunications.
Oh, wow. That's quite interesting. So quite a broad background. All right. And how did you become a coach? And tell me, you're a leadership coach. How did that happen?
So in the corporate world, I was in the corporate world for about 26 years and went through a retrenchment. And in those years, I loved developing people. So for the last 4 years that I was there, I always shifted divisions or departments every 4 years. I have a philosophy: 1 year to learn, 1 year to grow, 1 year to plow back, and then the next year you have to move. And I apply that in my own life. And then I started working with people, especially young graduates, and I just loved the way that they brought energy, and they also just encouraged me to want to develop them. So I touched a little bit, and I also had a coach at that stage, and he was guiding me and said, I want to do what you do. So he said, well, do it in the corporate world, and then find out how you can do it. So while I was looking after a product, I was doing product management and product development, and at a senior manager level, I started developing people to the degree that my boss one day said to me, what are you doing? Are you coaching people or are you developing product? So I said, no, I just love working with the people. And then I realized, and when I went through the retrenchment, for me, it was a natural progression because I saw an absence of leaders and I saw an absence of entrepreneurs. And I said, well, I want to be what I call a leadership entrepreneur. I use entrepreneurial principles to develop leaders and leadership principles to develop entrepreneurs. And that's where the coaching came from.
Paul, in our world, we are dealing with business coaches every day, with coaching programs, with any way to make your business better, even make your life better, where you talk to life coaches and that sort of thing. But you're a leadership coach. What's the difference between a leadership coach and a normal business coach?
I think it's quite a difficult thing in the world because we have managers and we have leaders. I think so many people blend the two. Because a manager looks after managing resources, a leader looks at the people and creating vision. So there's a lovely military term that says resources must be managed, troops must be led. So in an army, if the troops know what they're doing, where they're going, that's leadership. The manager makes sure there's enough fuel, there's enough ammunition, there's enough food. So what I discovered in my own corporate world is the absence of that. I said, I want to work with people to make sure that they're not only managing people, because you cannot, and this is quite controversial, I don't believe you can manage people. People try to manage people, you cannot. You can manage the lights, you can manage the air conditioning, you can manage the things around you, but the person has to be inspired to do something. So for me, when I work with clients to lead them and to coach the leadership, there's a leader in them because they should have led themselves first. So all I do is I look at their behaviors and I look at how we can unlock that so that we can make them be strong in something that they're already strong in. But the world, unfortunately, has made them feel weak.
People being the variable in any business. I mean, it could be clients or it could be your staff. You told me earlier about the bank profile. You even asked me about my bank profile, and I said I'm a green. I'm what did I call it?
Knowledge.
A knowledge. Yes. Quickly tell me a bit more. What is the banking profile?
I'm glad you asked. I have have a set with me. So when we deal with leadership, it's about understanding who the person is. And what's core to us are our values. So if you think about, and it's not what I say, Dr. John DeMartini says, your values are based on your voids. So in your case, you said green. This is knowledge. Those people, and we'll include a link at the bottom of this, I'm sure, where people can go and get access to these cards. If this is your top one, if knowledge is your top one, that means that you're seeing there's so much what you value is knowledge, information, new learnings, is based on something that was missing in your life. Now, a bit of a reveal and being totally transparent and, how do we call it, vulnerable here. At school, I got an E, and that wasn't for excellence, it wasn't for effort, it was for 40%. So that was my average.
Made it.
I just made it. In Afrikaans, they say, oorstoot en beseringstijd.
I know the feeling.
So people that have green right at the top is something that was missing in their lives. So when we understand what is valuable to you as a person, whether it is structure, whether it is action, or whether it is relationships and people, it helps me work with you as a leader. Because if I know what's valuable to you, and I, as a leadership coach, unlock that value, give you permission, if you want to put it that way, give you permission to live out your values, you become a natural leader.
Right, that's totally self-explanatory. So Paul, the bank profile, how does it impact any business? How do you use something like a bank profile to identify the various role players in your staff, but also can you use it for clients, to understand clients?
So let's just take a step back. So bank is blueprint, action, nurture, and knowledge. That's where the term comes from. And why I love this, I mean, I studied industrial psychology, but I love this because it links to what is valuable to you. So if you have a whole lot of employees around you, if you have a team, our role as manager is to know what's valuable to the people that we're dealing with. If you know what's valuable to those people, they feel valued. And if someone feels valued, they will add value. So what the bank does, it gives you an inroad or almost like a cheat card, if you want to put it that way, of how Jean works. Because we did this before the time, I know that your knowledge is high. And on the card, we have 12 different values. I know the following is important to you, things like learning, intelligence, logic, self-mastery, research and development. And when I talk about these things, I can see your eyes light up. But I know that may I mention what your last one is?
No, by all means.
Your last one is action-based. So maybe those who've dealt with Jean might say that he takes a long time to actually go and do
Tomorrow's
something.
another day.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So things like freedom is not important to him. Flexibility is not that important in terms of spontaneity, excitement, attention, fun, and sometimes you're seen as a serious person.
No.
Yeah. Image is not important to you. It's a case of, guys, let's go about learning, let's make a difference. If this is your last one, then I must make sure when talking to you that I'm not putting too much emphasis on action. Because if I'm putting emphasis on action, I'm talking French to you where your home language is English. So we can see these as 4 different languages.
You can be lucky I didn't wear my Nike tackies. Image. The whole bank profile fascinates me because if I understand it and I understand the people in my office, I can probably handle them a bit better, but also get better performance out of them.
100%.
For instance, my partner, I'm not entirely sure which profile he is, but we all sometimes butting heads about detail.
100%.
But if I understand this, I could approach it a different way and hence get better performance and less resistance. In whatever we want to change.
In fact, in the world, blueprint is the highest. Everyone wants structure. And if you look at what's happening with world presidents and people are trying to control everything. The more control we have, we feel in control. How many of you and you want to be controlled?
But speaking of that, and this is now something we haven't discussed before, leadership. What I found since I became president of BNI, but also seeing it in what's happening in the world, Donald Trump, other leaders that's around. As soon as people start standing up and start leading, the rest is actually your followers want to follow.
Yeah.
So by being a leadership coach, you can also assist people to be a leader.
Yeah.
Because if there's no leadership, everything scatters. Am I right?
100%.
I'm just trying to bring it back to my own examples.
Well, I mean, if you think of your own situation, who inspired you? There were people in your life that you wanted to follow.
Yeah.
And if you think of those people, what did they do differently with you that the people that you thought, oh my gosh, just stop managing me? Can you think of those people?
Absolutely. Somebody like Elon Musk is my greatest hero. When he started, he started young. He didn't conform to the structures. He didn't want to be managed. He followed his own dream. Okay, the fact that he's a bit more clever than us, kudos. But at the end of the day, that also allowed him to create a vision which was a bit strange to other people initially. But now suddenly the whole world wants to go to Mars because Elon Musk can put you there.
But I mean, I've never profiled Elon Musk, but I've looked at various people like him and Donald Trump, and even I'll hazard a guess with Cyril Ramaphosa as well. But Elon's top card is definitely knowledge.
Yes.
Because if you look at the concepts, it's about learning. He didn't have a good schooling environment. He was bullied. So for him, the school environment, he had to remember your values are based on your voice.
And his father.
So it's what was missing in your life. So intelligence. So it's important for him to learn and read new books, logic, self-mastery, technology. I mean, SpaceX, he heads up a company. He's developed a car that is an electronic vehicle. Research and development, science, universal truths, expertise, competence. So myself, also, Green, yourself, and would have a conversation for hours. In fact, as we're talking, we would probably change topic 15 times.
It's already happening.
Yeah. His second card is probably high with action. If you look at how he reacts, his relationship with people are put quite low down.
Yeah, he's had 3 divorces, I think. So,
he's got lots of children.
Yeah.
But if you think of the way he works with people, nurturing is not key to him. He'll say what he feels and what he thinks, whether it upsets you or not.
Yeah.
His structure is also quite low because he goes and breaks all the rules. So you would immediately have an affiliation with him. Donald Trump, high on action.
Yeah.
Blue, once again, right at the bottom. But Donald Trump has great relationships. So he's the world's best salesman when it comes to that. He sold himself.
That's so true, eh? I haven't thought of it that way.
He sold himself to be the president for the second time.
Yes.
Because it's nurture by building relationships. Now, you can also say he breaks a little bit down there as well, especially with all his tariffs that he's implementing. But for him, it's about action. Knowledge, in a crisis situation, he might ask a couple of questions around knowledge. But I don't think he worries about structure. He hires the people to bring the structure.
Yeah.
Can we go to Cyril?
But let's leave Cyril for now. We might tread on a few toes. It's watching this video. On the other hand, what you're saying is, so if you are not the right person in a certain area, like you like to break rules, but you know you have to pay tax.
Yeah.
That's where you appoint people.
Yeah. 100%.
And that becomes another leadership
100%.
quality.
Yeah.
You know your weaknesses and for sure know your strengths.
Yeah.
And work from there. And you can almost fill your room in your office with the right people if you know who they are.
100%.
So let's bring that back to a business scenario. And I don't know if this can be an example that you want to bring out, but you've taught various amounts of big companies how to structure their leadership, how to be better leaders, and how to obviously 10x their businesses. How would you approach a company?
Can I give an example of one of my clients?
Yes.
So I approached the client. In this particular company had lost a particular individual due to stress. So the HR department said, look, we need someone just to work with. He's a new employee. We don't want him to go the same route. And it's I won't mention the type of business they're in, but it's a highly stressful environment. I went into his office, and let's call it Sipho as a name. So I went into Sipho's office, and his desk was full of papers. Now, in Sipho's team, he's got 3,000 employees. He's got 4
That's
key...
under him?
Underneath him.
Okay.
He's got 4 key direct reports, and then under them they have probably about 4 under each of them, and then all the 3,000 people.
It's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of responsibility. But I looked at his desk and I said, but what are you doing? And he said, no, I'm busy finalizing the timesheets for these people so that we can make sure that the payments happen. Now, you can probably start guessing what industry he's in. So I said, but why are you doing it? He says, he has to make sure it's his budget that the people actually get paid and that it's correct. So I said, aren't you paying other people to do it? And he said, no, I need to check it myself. So let's fast forward 4 or 5 months after we'd worked with him. Sipo's desk got clearer every time I saw him, and I saw him every 2 weeks. And when we finished off the coaching program, my programs normally run for about 6 months. He was saying that his wife was asking him why he's not opening his computer and why he's not dealing with emails.
I'm sitting with the same situation, but okay, let's before I diverse.
And his desk was clear. And I said, Sipo, what's happened? Why is this? He says, we were working with leadership principles. We were working at delegation was a big area for him. He hadn't delegated. He was new in the organization. But when he got the people underneath him to do what they should be doing, and they got the people underneath them to do, he showed me, he actually turned his screen to me and he showed me a 700% increase.
In company turnover?
In his turnover.
Wow.
So we're talking multi-millions over here. He showed me this.
Wow.
And I said, and he pointed to me, he said, that's you. I said, no, Sipo, it's not me. It can't be me. I'm not working in the organization. It's you. So you could sort of see the confusion on his face a little bit. So I said, this team reports to you. All you did is you started leading the team better. You started focusing on not managing the team, which we spoke about a little bit earlier, where there's a strong emphasis on, I want to make sure you do the way that you have to do it because that's the way I want to do it. And we say, let's be a better organization. But can I use, I love metaphors and stories. I'll use another example. So many of us had children that played biliki rugby or soccer. And the first time they get together, what do we notice when those kids are on the field and there's one ball? What do all the kids do?
Go for the ball.
They all go for the ball.
Yeah.
They run and they go. They all need to know that they're going to kick the ball.
Yeah.
What happens over time when the coach eventually gets, he's leading the team? What is he doing to the team? What is he helping the team with?
You must stand there. This is the scrum. This is the backs. That's the fullback.
So in rugby, there's a scrum. There are certain people that are in the scrum. There's a forward. There's a wing. There's a back. There's a flanker. All those people. But as you get older, and this is what happens in a company as well, everyone wants the ball. The salesperson wants to do it, and if the operations are not doing it, they go into operations. They start managing the widget. The operations, chief operating officer has a finance division, but they're not doing it fast enough or good enough. So what do? They do the finance division.
Yes.
So what's happening? They're all going after the same ball. As companies, and let's use our national team under Rassi, the way that he's worked with them, everyone, and they're not playing for South Africa, they're playing for themselves. If you read his book, they're playing for themselves in the context of the people back home where they are. So he's identified why they're playing. But also, the person knows what their role is. So now, when a soccer team or a rugby team knows what they're doing, the wing does what he has to do on the side. The center does what they have to do in the center. I mean, the scrum guys, the bomb squad, are solid guys. They're there to make sure that you can't use them to do a wing position because by the time they run up halfway down there, Bongi is going to run out of energy. So you've got to use the right people in the right roles, and that's the role of a business. The leader has to take the strengths and the abilities of everyone using the values or using other tools that are used.
That's a basic tool to assist you. But in the process that you're working with companies, you probably also focus on clear role definitions. Because, again, in my company, everybody does everything, which sort of creates overlaps, it creates uncertainty, and you also get the ball that just fall op die vloer.
Yeah, sometimes dropped,
Sometimes dropped, yes. So that's part of what your strategies is that you bring into a company.
No, let's go back to, this is the entry when it comes to understanding people. There are different ways of doing it. But there are 24 different profiles. There are 4 different values or 4 different cards, but there are 24 different profiles. So you would have people in an organization. Now, if yours is knowledge, so when you do an interview and the person is very knowledgeable, they know what they're talking, you'll want to appoint them immediately. If your partner is very action-orientated, which is the opposite of you, he's going to look for someone that is very action-orientated, so he's not going to worry about the knowledge. So immediately you're going to differ on this. But if we use the action people in the right area like sales, not necessarily product development, because product development has to have the research, you start using the right people in the right role. And sometimes people don't know that. They don't know what role they should be in. So this is the role of the leader once again. The leader has to help people understand themselves and give them permission to be the best version of themselves. I just do this from a coaching perspective.
I'm starting to think now, you was initially talking about big companies, but even for a smaller company like ours, with 10 or 12 employees, that is, that at the end of the day still has its challenges, even if there's multiple roles that one individual needs to take. My point is, I know I'm good on knowledge, which means I want to educate people more than anything else, which technically makes me a bad salesperson. But my honesty is, I would rather give somebody the facts and say, this is your expectations, than promising the sky and the moon. How would you assist somebody to be more successful than also to sell? I'm thinking of an example yesterday. Me and clients, we did a Zoom call, and I was really almost teaching them how social media works, instead of making a sale to get the money. My philosophy is, I'd rather walk away with somebody that don't want to use me because they know everything. But essentially, I might have shot myself in the foot there.
Well, you definitely did. But once again, let's take the profile of a knowledge person is to big picture learning, research and development. So if you're dealing with a client where this is their last value, you are spewing information. You're like a fire hydrant. He's got a small little cup like this, and you are pouring so much water on him that the person, you're actually probably unselling yourself, if you want to put it that way. Instead of promoting and selling yourself, you are destroying the sale because you're providing too much information.
Makes so much sense.
And the person is confused because now you're giving them options. And maybe you give them all these quote 1, quote 2, quote 3. But we have a quote 10, 11, and 12 as well. And the guy says, especially if his card is action. I came to you because I have a social media problem. I'm running out of leads. They're not coming in. How do I convert them? And you go into the whole process of what we do. And this guy says, dude, what's it going to cost me? When can we start? So like our employees, we do it with our clients as well.
But can you teach somebody then who is good on one aspect to become good at another aspect?
Well, your values, and I've had a lot of debates with people, your values do change a little bit, but they are core to what you do. So it's very difficult. If someone is big on relationships and nurturing, remember this is high if something happened in your life where there was relationships were missing. It's very difficult to unlearn this in someone. I would rather say use that to their and your advantage. So this person you'd want to use in the HR department, in sales, in business development, who's working with new clients. You might, if you give them your version of the knowledge and everything and say, okay, give them a very sort of rudimentary or very basic rundown, because they're going to say, oh, there's too much information. How's your dog doing? And you say, no, but you need to do this. And they just want to build a relationship with you. So you're giving them just enough information because they've built a relationship with a client. So as you're working with your employees, you can work with clients as well, because effectively the theory of this is you've got 4 cards. If I understand what your top card is, I can push your sales up by 300%. Because if I'm speaking to you as a nurturer and you're actually a blue person, I'm going to lose that sale. Or you talking to the person about this and his action, it's like, why you keep telling me this information? I'm going to walk away because the other guy just told me it's going to cost me this, and this is what they're going to do.
Okay, this is great, but let's take it to a practical example. It's not like I'm going to ask my prospective clients to do a bank profile.
Why not?
Well, it might be interesting, and then I'm going to send him to you to understand what it does. That's one strategy. But
thanks for the referral.
the point is, can you teach people to quickly summarize a potential prospect or an employee or somebody you're interviewing without asking them to do this, to at least have an idea which one he is?
Well, we're going back to the philosophy.
Don't share IP. People must come to you, but
but I think it's important to share this. I mean, none of the stuff I've got, Charlie, even the link is free of charge. So I want people to learn, because if we go back to the philosophy of leadership, I love what Socrates says: know thyself. Know thyself. Because if you know who Jean Quinn is, and everyone else knows who Jean Quinn is, and they deal with you as Jean Quinn, not as I know you like Elon Musk, potential Elon Musker, like I'm an aspiring Musker, whatever, but to treat you like Jean Quinn, to use the skills that Jean Quinn has, to use the background that John Quinn has. That's far better than trying to be someone else. I meet so many people out there that want to be leaders. They want to be like that person. I'm saying, that person's taken. Why do you want to be like them?
Yeah.
Be yourself. So even with customers, and I'm open with customers, say, if I want to serve you better, I want to understand what's valuable to you. Would you mind taking 90 seconds to rearrange the cards? And anyone that's done a BNI one-to-one with me will know. The first thing I do is I do a bank profile with them, and I say, okay.
Really?
No. And I say, well, before we meet, let me understand who you are.
Yeah.
So now I know if there are blue ones there, first, okay, sometimes you do it before the meeting, because these guys never be late for the meeting, because the blueprint guys, you know a couple of these people.
I was here before you.
Yeah, that's my lowest one. But because my nurturing's high, I was building a relationship with my previous client and battling to terminate that conversation. So that's a disappointment.
Yes.
So, to you. Yours is knowledge. So while I got here, you were busy looking at a website. You were busy teaching yourself something. Someone who's like this will look at the people around them and observe them, what people are doing. So when I meet with my clients, knowing what's important to them first means that we can far better understand them and far better serve them. And so if you know all your clients, you know what their profile is. In fact, everyone, hopefully clients know this as well, everyone whose number I've got stored on my phone who have done a bank is, I write down what their code is.
Awesome.
So I know.
That's
when I'm
quite
talking
nice.
to you, it's about knowledge. I'll first ask you, so what did you do that was new? How are you doing in this environment? I see you've changed this.
But, okay. So when you take on a client, you basically teach them the action on then doing a bank profile with a prospective client. Especially if it's bigger companies, it's a longer sale. It's not somebody like that walks in and come buy a jersey. That's, well, I'm sure that can also be done. Maybe you can send them and sit and ask. Point being is, so Paul, you at this point we spoke about quite a nice offer that you are talking about, and that's your group coaching.
Yes.
It's an online coaching. Tell me a bit more about the next one that's coming up.
So I think, let me just take a step back as well. Coaching, there's almost like a fallacy in terms of coaching. What's wrong with you? Why do you need a coach? But if you look at the most wealthy people in the world, the most successful people in the world.
Stop. Kom ek vra vir daai vraag vir jou.
Okay.
Why do you need coaching?
So a lot of people I meet say, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. So I said, but go and look at the people who have coaches in the world. It's your most successful people. All the sports teams have coaches.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Could they manage without the coach? Coaching does not mean you're doing something bad. And I'm not too sure whether it's the history of the country, if you think of where we've gone through colonialism.
Afrikaner egos.
Not only, well, the English were in control before you guys were in control. So imperialism, colonialism, apartheid, and then we have a freedom party in terms of the African National Congress, different way of doing it. But I'm not too sure whether when someone says coach, it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Coaching takes you from the zero to a higher point. Whereas if someone needs help sometimes from a negative, we don't deal with the negative side. We help make you better. So when we're dealing with coaching, it's not a bad thing. It's actually, to say I've got a coach, it's well done. So what I've found is when I do one-to-one coaching, there's a perception, once again, that coaching is too expensive. Now, as I said, 700% increase with our friend Sipo. Okay, what is 700% worth to you? So, well, people don't want one-on-one coaching. So I thought, well, let's do group coaching. So I've done this for a couple of years now. We do it in the evenings, after hours, and we bring up to 10 different people in the room. And the price works out to probably about a third of the price of coaching in the office environment.
Nice.
I'm not including the time I would take out of your day while I'm meeting with you. And yes, it is an hour. It's not quite 9 o'clock at night, so it's not getting your wife to look at her computer. But from 7 to 8, we run it for an hour. It's after hours, there's a little bit of homework that you do, but you learn as much from the other people around the table.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
100%.
Because you also have other inputs and they're all in group coaching or leadership coaching mode.
And we only focus on leadership. I mean, there are lots of areas that we do, but we look at the leadership aspect. So we have you read a few articles on leadership. We have you discuss what leadership means to you, compare different leaders. And in this process, we are awakening your neural pathways to be aware of what leadership is. Because I really think the problem is, and anyone out there, if you know of someone who goes to a business school who teaches people to be nasty, to create toxic environments, please introduce them to me. No one teaches us to do that.
Yes.
Business schools teach positivity. They teach organizations like BNI have positivity as a value. How is it that we have negativity, we have backbiting, no one teaches us these things.
Insecurities.
It's insecurities. No one has ever taught you. It's almost like I help people discover their operating manual.
Talking about insecurities, just for a moment. Once you know what your capabilities is, you know what your profile is, for instance, your self-confidence, because now you know what to focus on and you've been coaching, and you are successful because you have done this.
100%.
Suddenly goes up. So now negativity tends to be a lot less, and your positivity because you now have focus. That's something I've learned recently, and I'm sure that's something that happens in your coaching.
Well, Einstein, all of us remember Einstein, the guy with the frizzy hair. Okay. He said, if you measure the way a fish climbs a tree, the fish is stupid. So are we doing that in society? If I don't know who you are, if I don't use your strengths, and there are lots of tools out there. Gallup Strengths Finder does it. They look at, I think it's 34 different areas. If I operate in your strength, your self-confidence naturally comes out.
That's so true.
But if you've never played bowls, and I say, oh, Jean, we're going to play bowls today, here's the kitty, here's the bowls, and go for it. You're going to be as nervous as heck, and it's a competition. I'll bring you in there. You've got no self-confidence.
Fair.
But if you're playing bowls every week, you've got neural pathways that are strong, you know what the game is about, I pop you in there and you do it.
And the more you do it, it's like riding a bike,
Yeah.
the better you get at it.
But no one teaches people to understand people. We try and do it at business school.
That's the funny part, and I was just thinking about it. People come to me to get more business, but then they depend on me to get leads or enhance their digital marketing, their social media, whatever the necessary point is that they want. But if they were to start with themselves in their own company, uplifting their own business structure, leadership styles, like you said, suddenly everything gets next level.
I'm going to use your own example.
Shooting myself in the foot.
No. I'm going to use your own example of what you guys do when you start a social media campaign.
Yes.
The first question you ask is, what is your goal?
Yes.
Now, the first question I ask when I do leadership coaching is, what is the goal of the session? Where do you want to be? I want to be a better speaker. I want to lead my team better. I'll make a note of these things. These are your expectations. So at the end of 6 months, if you're a better speaker, you're a better leader, then I've achieved. And you are measuring. Paul wants to grow his leads by 30%. You have the data, you have the social media metrics that show it grew by 20% or it grew by 30%.
Yes.
But we've got to start with a goal. And we have more goals in business. We have more goals in, we have to grow turnover by 10%. What we find with leadership is people don't have personal goals. So you have goals.
That's interesting.
So I'm not the life coach, I'm the leadership coach. But what are your leadership goals? And if we don't have those goals in ourselves, where do we want to be? And that's why a lot of people discount spending money on themselves, coaching themselves, going to conferences, doing a degree, doing a diploma, doing a short course, using so many free facilities out there because they don't know where they want to be.
One of the things that I've also realized is that sometimes you get people that think they are uncoachable. Is that a fact?
Well, based on this as well, I can see whether someone's uncoachable. The challenge is, one of the other tools I use actually looks at our behavior profiles. So if you see someone has got such well-developed patterns, let's take someone who he's been in the IT industry for ages, he's done his own developing, and someone comes to him and says, here we have DeepSeek and we have ChatGPT. Try using these tools to do your coding. He says, there's no ways I'm going to use that because I trust the young developer. Hopefully he's not doing all his programming using ChatGPT or DeepSeek.
If it works, it works.
There are mistakes as well.
Yeah.
I've seen people
Yeah,
with
yeah.
7 fingers when in ChatGPT and a lot of these graphics programs. But if that person has got so used to doing it in the old way, for me to change it, it's going to take a long time.
Yes.
And this is that old, teach your dog new tricks. It's very an old dog.
Yeah.
So, but I want to use once again a practical example. Someone who is overweight, smokes a lot, eats a lot, doesn't get any physical exercise.
You can just put it.
No, that was not meant at you. That person, you keep saying to him, I think you should just walk a little bit more, watch what you eat. He doesn't do anything about it because he doesn't want to change. He's uncoachable at that stage. He has a heart attack.
Then it
The
changes.
next day,
Yeah. Yeah.
the next day he's coachable because, oh my gosh,
Light bulb.
the light bulb went on. He leaves all the cholesterol. He stops smoking. He starts walking. In fact, he does a park run every week. Eventually he's doing half marathons and then he's a super fit guy. And
So I told you I was at my doctor, my cholesterol was high.
there's nothing to do
Doing
with
the park runs.
This is something we do. We personalize these
okay,
things. But can you see that there are uncoachable people, but not to the degree that we say we can't teach an old dog new tricks. Come a crisis point,
Yeah.
but you have to know yourself. Go back to what Socrates says, know thyself. Because if you know yourself, and you know what your weaknesses are, work on them. Don't be the opposite. And if you're bad, in your case, you don't like taking action. Don't say, oh, now I'm going to do everything in action. Get someone else that can guide you with that. If you love knowledge, don't say, I'm never going to study anything new about knowledge, because it's going to be missing. It's one of the values that you have. So this is where you build your team around it. You have your wing doing the wing, you have your center doing the center, you have your scrum half doing whatever they do.
Well, I think it's at least worth it that people connect with you, understand what the difference is that you can make in their lives. I see leadership coaching in a much different light at this point, because I can totally relate to most of the issues you've mentioned in my own company.
Can I just end off with a massive transformative purpose? Because I think this is something which, if you know why you're doing something. So for me, I haven't been sick for many years. In the corporate world, I had sort of annual colds and so on. But if your purpose is clear, and my purpose when I work with people is I want to unlock the latent leader, the sleeping leader in everyone I meet to improve business effectiveness, excellence, and potential in Africa. Because that is so important to me, because once we start doing that, imagine if 60 or so million people living in South Africa, if a lot of them knew themselves better, all right, discovered the leadership potential in them, took that opportunity, started a business, realized what they were not good at, got other people to help them, that company forms a unit that is strong, provides services to people that they see a unity. That pushes up the earning of that person, of the community. Can you see what happens?
Yeah.
It now, for me, I use the analogy of dropping a stone or rock in a pool and the ripples go out. I have no control over how those ripples go. I need to throw a big rock or a small rock in. No matter what I throw in, it will create ripples. And that is what leadership coaching is. Leadership or leader is that stone or that rock. How far we throw it, how deep it goes, depends on the weight and the seriousness of that person. Because the bigger stone is going to make more waves. And that's what we're going to see in South Africa. If you've got those waves changing, then leadership coaching is working.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. This was quite interesting. And I think we can carry on for another hour if you want to.
That's right.